Welcome back to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm Susie Selleck, and today we're in Wirt, Indiana with Pastor Troy Hedges. Troy, thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for coming to Wirt.
Well, the Wirt Baptist Church is absolutely beautiful, and I would love for you to just get started. Tell us about the foundation.
All right. Well, the foundation of Wirt goes back to 1817, late 1817, a group of farmers with the Burns brothers, James Burns and his brother John, decided that they wanted to start a church in the Harbert Creek area, which is a creek that runs behind the church. And so they started a Wirt Baptist, or Harbert's Creek Baptist Church, and then started to build that up, and they sought counsel from local ministers, and the minister that was formerly the one to come and actually establish a church was Jesse Vawter, who is buried in our cemetery at this time. And so Jesse came and started Wirt. They started Wirt on February 14th, 1818. So we will have been serving the Lord here for 200 years.
Now, the structure itself has a couple of unique points. I'd like for you to touch on those if you can.
Absolutely. The church building itself, the sanctuary foundation, and the bricks surrounding the sanctuary were actually made out of the property located right next to the church. So the church structure and building was put up in 1825, and so it's been here ever since then. Most of the interesting things about the church, the farmers that have served to the church throughout the years have dedicated themselves and given portions of land or portions of finances to sustain the church.
Troy, can you tell us if anybody famous has been here?
Well, we do have some famous folks that have went through the church or have been associated with the church. Probably the rumor or most famous was Dale Evans. Came to the church for for some type of program and everything. Of course, that was a little before my time. I didn't get a chance to meet her or anything, but that was the rumor that had went on. The other interesting point is that in our cemetery, we do have a Revolutionary War hero that is buried in our cemetery. So that has added to the history of the church. And of course, Jesse Vawter himself, being buried in our cemetery, has attracted some attention from a lot of churches that he started up and down the road here in Indiana.
Tell us some of the interesting stories that either you know of or that you've experienced yourself.
Well, there's been a lot of interesting stories, a lot of interesting things about the church through the family members and everything that have passed that upon me through the generations. One was the youth department that was always a very strong youth department and continues to be today. One of the interesting things is when they had some of their Bible schools and some of their programs, they've had some interesting events. One in particular was one night the church caught fire after a youth program, and one of the younger deacons decided that they saw the fire, and so he actually scaled up the church and put the fire out and everything upon the church. So that was one of the interesting stories. Some of the other interesting stories is the moments that they've had as fellowship, as far as sledding. The hillside beside the church, oftentimes that was associated with the Harrell farm, was often used and continued to be used for sledding purposes and things like that behind the church.
So I would like you to add a little spice to this, because this was something, even though I was raised Baptist, I didn't know this. We were talking beforehand, and you said that this where we were standing was actually an addition. Mm-hmm. And tell us about that. Explain that, because I actually want you to go into the aisles after that.
Absolutely.
As well.
The church itself, when it was set up originally, the pulpit was located at the front of the church, and so the entrance to the church was right beside the pulpit. The theory behind this is that would make folks make sure they were here at church on time, so they wouldn't walk in late and let everybody look at them. The second thing is that the back of the church was actually an addition was put upon that, and so they changed the entrance to the back of the church, and the aisles has a center aisle usually for the bride to go down for weddings. And they said that the base of the aisles in the aisle of the church for weddings was that the bride would come down there, meet her groom at the front of the church and everything, as opposed to some other churches that where the bride and groom entered at the same time and came down. So that's the way they built the pews. The pews are roughly between 80 and 100 years old. The pews have not been changed so much. Even the pads that have been placed in the pews are pads that are separate, to where they haven't been drilled into the pews or anything. So there's a very distinct appreciation of history with Wirt Baptist. There's folks that have grown here, that have lived here, that have worshiped here, and yes, some that have died here, have all given their life and wanted to make sure that they honor those that came before them.
Troy, I understand that you are part of the youth shelter, so obviously you are heavily involved in your community. How is the church impacted?
Well, the church has been a part of an association, the Madison Baptist Association, and through the association with various churches, First Baptist, North Madison Baptist, other churches within the community, Wirt seeks to make an impact within our community where we can live. For example, one of the projects that we started in the last few years was our Madison Mission Week, where the children of the church actually go out into the community, look for projects that they can do to help out their fellow neighbors, whether they need a fence mended or a roof painted or some construction done in a home or just a yard cleaned up. The church youth have been taught that they need to make an impact where they live. Another big impact that our church is very heavily involved in is our Jefferson County 4-H Fair. Many of our church members are dedicated to the fair, that actually give up weeks of vacation to work for the fair and also for the children. And most of the Wirt children during the second week of July are at the fair, whether they're showing projects or doing different activities at the fair. So the fair is a very big part of Wirt Baptist and the lives here.
What about the future? What's the future look like here for Wirt and what you guys do?
Well, Wirt has been fortunate because, again, the generations have grown up in the church, some have left, but many have stayed here. And we are, like I said, into many fourth and fifth generation children that have grown up in this church, and they've taken it upon themselves to make sure, because of what was given to them spiritually and with the impact of different activities, they want to do the same for their children. So that's the great thing about Wirt. We have a very strong young couples group here at the church, and so they strive to do things in the church that their mothers and grandmothers did and everything, and they want to make the same experiences they had here at the church continue. So the future of the church is looking good and looking strong.
How long have you been leading this congregation?
I've been leading Wirt Baptist with the youth department and as the pastor for approximately 24 years. And it's been an honor and privilege for me to serve here. We have tremendous families within Wirt Baptist, very caring and loving families, and it's something that I'm thankful for. And you can just see, God's love and God's faithfulness to this church by oftentimes the families that are here. The families of Wirt Baptist truly care about one another, and they strive to maintain that spirit of compassion and empathy with each other. And so for me, it's been a privilege, but it's also been a blessing and a joy. It's an opportunity that I count as a gift from God to be able to serve here at Wirt Baptist Church.
Thank you for watching another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. Today we were in Wirt, Indiana at the Wirt Baptist Church here with Pastor Troy. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you.
And remember, travel slowly and stop often. Bye for now.